Hey everybody, this is Russ from Retro Game Core. So about 7 months ago, I bought the RG350M, and this console really impressed me. This was the first time that I really thought to myself, hey, maybe I should start a website about this device because it's so cool. I really love the 640 by 480 display, and even today, this display has not been matched. Well, I'm expecting my RG350V any day now, and it's going to have this exact same screen. And so in preparation of the RG351V's release, I decided to bust out my RG350M and play around with it for a while the other day. But after having this device for about 7 months now, I realized that the stickiness on the back of these rubber pads was just coming unglued, and it was really hard to play with because I would get this little bits of stickiness on my fingers, and it was sticking to everything. So I decided I'm going to take these off and then show you how I did it. Now let me caveat all this by saying that the way that I remove these rubber backs and the adhesive is not the only way to do this. It just happens to be the way that I tried and figured it out, and so you're more than welcome to try to find your own way, but I wanted to show you how I at least did it myself. So to start, I just pulled off these rubber backings, and they're really gunky and a little bit gross, but I decided the easiest way to do it is just peel it off, like a band-aid. And man, I hate it when things stick to my hands. Like, that's the grossest thing in the world to me. So I'm just kind of getting over myself here right now. So first things first, I decided to use a paper towel and try to remove as much adhesive as I could. And then I decided to try maybe some nail polish remover. Maybe a little bit of that would go ahead and remove some of that extra adhesive feel. And I will say that overall, it removed a lot of that external adhesive, but it didn't get everything. There still was a film of stickiness all over everything, and I felt like I was just kind of spreading it around at this point. And you can see here, when I try to use a microfiber cloth, I just kind of make things worse. So then I decided to try an alcohol pad. And that worked okay as well, but it leaves a little bit of residue from the pad itself. So honestly, the best thing I figured at this point was just to use the nail polish remover again and the paper towel. But again, as you can see, it's not perfect. You can see there's a bunch of stickiness that I've kind of just smeared all over everything at this point. At this point, I decided to bring in the big guns. So my wife is really good at removing this kind of stuff from glass jars, and she recommended a very unconventional method that she had read about, and it works really well for her in removing labels from glass bottles. And amazingly, that's to use baking soda and a little bit of cooking oil. So that's what we're going to try, and I gotta say, I'm just as freaked out as you are right now. So we're going to start with just regular baking soda. I used about a teaspoon altogether. Not a lot, just enough to kind of spread it around everything. At first I was trying to make sure it didn't get into the screw holes, but then I realized very early on I wasn't going to be able to help it. Next I used just a tiny bit of oil, maybe like 3 drops altogether. And then I just kind of mushed it around. And by this point I was like, okay, well at least I had a good run with my 350M and I've ruined it now, but hey, you know what? All's well that ends well. And I just kept moving it around and pushing it around, trying really hard not to get it into any holes other than obviously the screw holes. Okay, at this point I used a microfiber cloth to try to just rub away as much as I could. And then I made it a little bit damp so that I could try to get a little bit more of that out of the cracks and crevices. And then I used a toothpick to try to remove as much baking soda as I can from the screw holes. And as you can see, the baking soda is just kind of getting a little bit everywhere. But luckily it's not really permanent or anything, so I just continued with the toothpick and just kind of rubbing everything all around. And amazingly, within a few minutes, everything was nice and clean. So here's the back here, and you can see that it doesn't have that sticky residue anymore. There's still a tiny bit of baking soda in some of the crevices and stuff, but honestly, just rubbing it down a couple more times fixed a lot of this. So I decided to give it a once over with one more alcohol pad just to see if I could pull off any extra baking soda here. And then I wiped it free with a microfiber cloth. So here we are. I'm really happy with how it all turned out. Honestly, I was never a big fan of those rubber pads anyway. And although I wish I didn't have these little indentations on the back of it now, I kind of don't mind them, especially compared to those rubber pads. And I can understand why Anbernic used them in the first place. They're trying to make sure you don't damage the console when you set it down. But personally, I baby this thing enough that I don't really feel like I need them. And it's interesting, when you're actually holding the console itself, you don't even really feel the indentations because your fingers will naturally stretch past them. So when you're playing, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference at all. Alright everyone, that's it for this video. I just wanted to show you really quickly how I removed the rubber pads and the trick that I use to remove any of that gunky residue. So if you have any additional tips and tricks to remove an adhesive like this, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Honestly, I think the baking soda and oil trick worked really well, but I'm sure there are other options out there. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and we will see you next time. Happy gaming!